Amongst the myriad of colorful, beautiful, intense, incredible images and multiple and infinite perspectives, how does one know the I am, who they are, and where they are in this world? Well, we're going to explore that topic in this dialogue from the beautiful Be Well Forest up here in Northern California. Get your creature cushion. I paint creatures, and I'm the creator and author of the epic story experience called Mat-Su. And in these videos, I'm starting to take you on the journey of the epic story experience of Mat-Su. It's written like the Iliad, right? Or the great poetics, or the tales of the Heike from Japan. And it's all written poetic form. And so I find a lot of personal mythology when I start to compose and reveal and write these poems and these stories. And they seem to just come out of nowhere, but really, in reality, they're coming from inside of me. And I believe everyone has a poetic nature inside themselves. It's what I call a painted poetic symphony. And the poem is how you talk to yourself in your own original language that orients you, shows the I am, shows who you are and where you are in this world. And so you can find your purpose and your own identity amongst all this myriad of images and multiple perspectives. So today I'd like to, go into yokai. That term yokai, it came to me after I was inspired as a young illustrator and a poet by the great works of J.R.R. Tolkien, right? And all the way back to, my opportunity to work at Lucasfilm and get into the mythology of Star Wars. It taught me a lot about Joseph Campbell, and it led me to my own mythology, my own personal mythology, which orients me with fundamental stories. But they're my stories, just like each one of you have your own story. And those are the symbols that will help you identify yourself, give you purpose, and orient you with that poetic compass. So yokai, it roughly means strange spirit. And when I first started getting into the yokai to develop the story of Mat-Su, I discovered on the internet that basically all the yokai were evil, right? They were ghouls and goblins and ghosts and, made of dark matter. But the term means strange spirit, roughly translated in English. And so when I started to discover these, of course, I looked into who were the creators, the modern creators. And the first one I came across was Shigeru Mizuki. He's the grandfather of manga. And he was a specialist in yokai. And he basically showed me that they were also metaphors of the invisible. And the invisible is not this mysterious thing. Once again, to me, it's that poetic compass inside yourself. It's the language that you mind in yourself that is your original symbols, your fundamental stories that will identify yourself, give you direction, show who I am and show who I am in this world, where I am, so it'll direct you on your path, right? So in the creation of the epic story experience of Mat-Su, I employ yokai. And I started creating them, drawing them, illustrating them, painting them, and most of all, writing poems about them, right? So for instance, there's one yokai named a kappa yokai. And those of you like sushi, there's a kappa roll. And so it's all from the mythology of these kappa yokai. And they're basically known as water goblins, right? But once again, goblin is a dark kind of term, right? And they also have these dishes on their head, this magnificent dish or bowl on their head. And there's little known because it's mythological folk tales, right? That started to explain these bold, watery bowls in their head. So it doesn't say much about them. The simplest one I found was basically when you meet them, you bow in honor, and if they lose their water, they cease to exist. But I also started wondering, what if we did? What is the metaphor, the symbolism? How do I identify with if I had an open dome on my head, because we're mostly made of water, the planet's mostly made of water, and I had access to a watery well on my head? What would it be? And that's what I started exploring in the story of Mat-Su, which helps me also identify myself. right? I see it as an open mind, right? If you had an open cavity on your head that was like an ocean on your head, it's an open mind. I also started thinking about the high-tech world we live in, and it could be a satellite dish. It could be the thing that transmits, your own poetic radar and gives you your own symbolic, legendary stories and fundamentals of yourself. And so that's an example of the yokai kappa, right? And so basically I'm going to start to do a bunch of shorts on how I transform a lot of these legendary and ancient yokai that were created by poets and storytellers and painters of old, and translate them and how I can apply them in my life. Because I believe in imaginative creatures. Just like I always ask a lot of my students, I work with a lot of children and teach them art and poetry, and I ask them, what does Mickey Mouse represent? Mickey Mouse is famous. Everyone wants a Mickey Mouse shirt, even they're not even into his stories or his characters, his cartoon. And everyone knows the universal principle that Mickey Mouse represents joy. So to me, Mickey Mouse is a yokai because he's a strange spirit. He's an imaginative, creative character, a creature. And he brings meaning to people's life. He brings light into people's life. And so in the story, epic story experience of Matsu, I invent yokai to tell the story, to bring forth these times we live in where I believe a lot of music has become just on the periphery of our lives, the perimeter of our lives. It's not in the central. Same with the notion of poetry. Poetry is just not always written and read and spoken, and you don't have to be a poet. I think there's a poetic nature in each one of us that helps us find who we are. It's that poetic compass. And so as I go deeper into this journey of taking you on into the Be Well Forest, right here, that was the original Sherwood Forest in the great story of Robin Hood. And of course, I adapt a lot of those in the epic story experience of Matsu, because my creature, one of the ones, the blue character you can find on the YouTube channel here, his name is Ra, right? We're gonna go into the story of Robin Hood and the epic story, but it takes us into the Be Well Forest, this beautiful, beautiful, lush forest in Northern California. And most of all, I'm gonna share with you artists creating this, what they get out of the story of Matsu and the discovery and the revealing, and using the ancient art of poetry to reveal this fantastical story that mirrors a lot of our lives on the planet today. And hopefully it brings a lot of joy and a lot of insight like it brings to me. So thank you for tuning in. Get on your creature cushion, hit that subscribe button, make the channel grow, because we're gonna start introducing the creation of the songs, the creation of the puppetry, the voiceover acting, the animation I'm doing almost every day, discovering a lot. I'm gonna start doing some videos about being an independent animator and taking this epic story that is just, the purpose of my life. So thank you for tuning in. We'll see you on the next video in the Be Well Forest with I Paint Creatures and the epic story experience of Matsu and the Funky Puppets.